Well, I mean, guys, have you've been looking online lately and you just see that there's just such a argument. There's just a debate going on right now, and I'm not talking about DeSantis versus Newsom, but I'm talking about these Heisman opinions and the debates that are just happening right now. And I can't help but just feed into it. Honestly, it just really I love it because there's difference in opinions, and that's what I love is everything. If everyone had shared the same opinion, it would be boring. We would live in such a gray life where with having different opinions, I think to me just really makes a good story. So with that being said, I just want to welcome everyone. This is Total Sports Talk Beyond the Lights, where I'm your host, Matthew Raridan, and we are going to really dive into this Heisman talk here. But first, I also want to introduce my co host here. I have David Street
What's up, y'all?
and Ed Smith.
Welcome.
Guys, like I said, this Heisman talk, it seems like the three of us online, we are in this debate. We are talking about this, and there just seems to always be more and more stats being brought our way. Thing if you, about college football, actually sports alone, not just college football. There is stats upon stats upon stats now. I mean, Pro Football Focus, if you've ever looked at them, it's amazing the stats they compile. But today LSU football dropped these stats online, and to me it doesn't always paint the full picture, and I'm probably going to get hate for that, but there's always more to it. And what I'm talking about right now is Bo Nix versus Jayden Daniels. That seems to be the final two for the Heisman. Michael Penix Jr., it sounds like he's out, even though here he is undefeated and he's taken his team to a conference championship, which is happening Friday against Oregon. Bo Nix. But he slowed down a little bit this season. Bo Nix seemed to actually really put his foot on the gas pedal. And that's why a lot of people have him as a front runner. And I am one of them. I think what Bo Nix has done this year, although may not sound legendary to some, and yes, he is going down so far right now as the highest completion percentage all of college football, and he's overtaking Mac Jones for that. And Mac Jones did not win the Heisman the year he did that. But it's not all about completion percentage. It is about how you lead this team on and off the field. And as I said, on and off the field. Bo Nix has been a leader for this Oregon Ducks team. And I'm not saying this because I'm an Oregon fan. I'm not a homer, okay? But I've seen this week in and week out, what Bo Nix is capable of, his leadership ability. And after that loss against Washington, I saw a new man, a quarterback that said, guys, I want us to win this championship. He is not saying, I want to win the Heisman. He's saying, I want to win a championship. This is my 20th year in college football. I want to win a championship. Well, he's on the right track. But not only is he on the right track, this Oregon Ducks team is on the right track. And that's why I have him as my Heisman favorite. Because you're seeing a team act as a team, but you still have to have a leader. You still have to have that field general. And that's what I'm seeing with Bo Nix. You aren't hearing a lot about their other players on that team. And although there are many players on that team that deserve so much credit, you're only hearing about him. Whereas on LSU, and this isn't to go against them, more props to them for having the talent they have. But every time you turn it into the game, of course, you're hearing Jayden Daniels first, but you're hearing that Malik Neighbors, man, he reminds me of Jamar Chase or Brian Thomas Jr. Man, that is Justin Jefferson, just 2.0. And what do those have in common? Those are elite Pro Bowl, all pro receivers they're comparing them to, and rightfully so. But they've lost 3 games. Whereas Bo Nix and Oregon has lost the one. So Bo Nix, I feel, is the leading candidate, but I'm not the one who votes for Heisman. There is going to be a lot of discussion on this topic, especially when the winner is announced. There's going to be a lot of hate. Doesn't matter if Jayden Daniels wins or if Bo Nix wins, there's going to be a lot of hate. So I feel as Bo Nix should win, but I'm anxious to see how the voters handle this, and I'm really just looking forward to it. But David, I'm really expecting to hear some things from you on this topic, though, too.
If you were to ask me um, if the Heisman race is a debate like week 5 or week 6, I would have said yes, absolutely. In fact, I even wrote an article basically saying that no one has stood out as far as the Heisman race goes. Right. Well, now here we are at the end of the regular season, and I take back pretty much everything I said in that article, because to me, Jayden Daniels is the clear cut winner of the Heisman Trophy. And guys, keep in mind that I'm a Florida fan saying this. LSU is one of our rivals. You think I feel good saying that an LSU player should win the Heisman? Hell no. But to me, the numbers are obvious. And speaking of numbers, Matthew, you mentioned the tweet that LSU put out. Well, for those of you who missed it, let me paint a clearer picture for you, okay? I think we all know just how insane Jayden Daniels' numbers are, so I don't need to get into that. But let me get into the nitty gritty details here, okay? According to LSU football, Jayden Daniels versus top 50 defenses uh, in 6 games: 1,806 passing yards and 16 passing touchdowns, 540 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. Total offense: 2,346 yards and 19 touchdowns. Bo Nix has played 2 top 50 defenses apparently. 615 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns, 39 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, giving him 654 total yards and 6 total touchdowns. And last but not least, Michael Penix Jr., since he is also in the running, has played against 4 top 50 defenses: 1,159 passing yards, 8 passing touchdowns, rushing, not pretty, -2 rushing yards, but 2 rushing touchdowns. So in total, 1,157 yards and 10 total touchdowns. So against better defenses, Jayden Daniels clears the competition. I understand the losses that he has, but I don't see how you can put the blame on him. And Ed, we know that you're vehemently anti Jayden Daniels, at least when it comes to the Heisman race. And Matthew, you can chime in too, but I want to get Ed's take on this first, right? Yes,
I'm
you
not anti Jayden Daniels on this Heisman race.
okay,
I'm
okay.
anti being stat guy versus being the best player in college football
Well, let me ask you
because
this.
there is a difference.
Well, let me ask you this, okay? Back is responsible for 45 of his offense's points, right? And the defense, his team's defense, lets up 46 points. How is that the quarterback's fault? Why should he get punished for that? It doesn't seem fair.
Well, because as a leader of a football team, you are supposed to raise the level of your team as their leader to achieve higher than what they can do on their own. Bo Nix is doing that. Jayden Daniels is not. Simple as that. Now, if you want the simple argument, there it is. But when you're talking about Jayden Daniels being 1-3 against top 25 teams, whereas Bo Nix, he's 2-1. Now, I will say that I'm adding Utah in this because the committee has it wrong. Utah needs to be in the top 25 over Tennessee. Plain as day, because that is awful in my opinion. But when you start looking at these stats that you want to keep bringing up, Bo Nix is the number one leader in passing yards in the country at 3,906 versus 38-13. Bo Nix still has another game to play because he wins. He has the Pac-12 championship game because he wins. Jayden Daniels does not. When you look at Bo Nix against top 40 defenses, top 40 teams in the country, Bo Nix throws for 334 yards a game versus 299 for Jayden Daniels. So in the aggregate, the numbers aren't that different when you're talking about a passing game, which quarterback, that is what they do. It is a passing league. I get that Jayden Daniels is a running quarterback and he has over 1,100 rushing yards in the for the year. 721 of those is from scramble yards. That is his offensive line breaking down, not able to do their job well enough so he can find the receivers downfield. Bo Nix, he has gotten that cohesive unit in front of him to where he does not have to run as much. He's only run for like 100 yards for the season, in positive yards gained. So that's where that comes in. And I'm not saying that Jayden Daniels, winning the Heisman has no merit. I'm saying his inability to lead the team to victory is a knock against him. It is something to be discussed and not just handed over because he made more highlight plays. He's on national highlight reels, the lead in because he did, oh my God, this, oh my God, that. If you want to take a look at what the Heisman voters, and let's be honest, the homers for SEC and the casual fan that doesn't know the intricacies of playing the position, what they're looking at are running quarterbacks. Uh, since 2010, every quarterback that has won the Heisman has been a running quarterback except for Joe Burrow. So you're talking your Cam Newtons, your Lamar Jacksons. You're talking about, I'm even going to put Bryce Young in that category from last year. I mean, because they are known for running as they are the running attack for their offense. That isn't Bo Nix. He's leading his entire team to victory, not just getting highlight reels on these sports shows across the country. Now, that being said, those running quarterbacks, those those players sell jerseys and they sell autographs and they get recognition to get their games in prime time for East Coast, which West Coast is a tough thing to do. And those players, they are winning the Heisman. I'm not going to say that Jayden Daniels is not going to win the Heisman. I'm telling you that there is a conversation to be had before you just look at a stat sheet and go, that's the guy.
And that's fair. But also something else I want to bring up too, is you. I think we also have to keep in mind. Look at the team's defenses. Jayden Daniels has to deal with a trash defense, even though you could argue that LSU on paper is a top 10, top 15 defense. Bo Nix, on the other hand, is thinking his lucky stars every single day that he gets to play on the same team that has an elite defense. So I understand what you're saying, Ed, but I think you also have to look at the defenses here. But what do you think, Matthew?
Well, I actually think that actually proves the point right there. I don't want to discredit Jayden Daniels for his scrambling ability, being able to keep the play alive, because not everyone can do that. So there is a reason Jayden Daniels deserves to be up there as a finalist. But the thing is, though, you brought it up with the defenses. If Oregon had a bad defense, that means Oregon would probably be in every game. But the thing is, though, is that Oregon hasn't been in every game because they have been so great on offense. Bo Nix isn't playing some of the fourth quarters. If besides Jayden Daniels going out against Alabama and one drive against, was it Georgia Tech, or sorry, Georgia Southern, when he had the 8 touchdowns? Well, there was only one drive that he did not play that game at the end. So Bo Nix, though, on countless times this year, has not played in the fourth quarter, somewhat in the second half. That same week that Jayden Daniels had all those touchdown passes, Bo Nix had 6, and he was out pretty much, and that was all in the first half. So if Oregon had a bad defense, and you want to talk about the padded stat sheet people, well, Bo Nix would probably have even more stats, yet he still is up there at the top with passing yards, and he's not playing every minute of every game, whereas Jayden Daniels is. So that has to be said too, is I don't want to discredit Jayden Daniels because LSU's defense is trash, but that means he has more playing time because of that. Whereas Oregon and Bo Nix doesn't, because their quarterback, they want to keep clean. They want to keep him healthy. So he's off the field where his stat sheet isn't going to be as padded because of that. So that's my point, and I'm pretty sure Ed's right there as well, is that The stats don't tell you everything, and there's a reason for that because Bo Nix isn't playing every minute like Jayden Daniels is.
Fair enough. And for the record, I think it was Georgia State, but your point
Yeah,
still stands.
yeah. I knew it was a Georgia team, just not
Yeah.
in Georgia. Because if it was
Yeah.
Georgia, it'd probably be a different outcome.
One of those irrelevant Georgia teams. They're all irrelevant except for UGA, obviously.
Yes. So, but that's all. That's our opinions here. I mean, we've got three of us here. Two of us do share pretty much the same opinion, which is bound to happen. But it is one of those that is pretty split down the middle. If we had a fourth person on here, they may be for Jayden Daniels. That's just how close it is.
And
I'm
I
a
got to say,
nonconformist,
I've
but
had
you're clearly right.
hours of arguments online about this very topic, saying the same thing over and over again. And we're to a point where, it's, I almost feel like it's the LeBron versus Jordan debate
Yeah.
to some extent. You stat guy LeBron versus 6 championships Jordan. Which one is better? And that has a similar feel to that, even though this is going to be something that will be uh, actually put to bed in about 2 weeks
Mhm.
when the Heisman Trophy ceremony does take place.
Well, let me ask one last question, then we can move on to the next topic. So clearly, you two think that Bo Nix deserves the Heisman, and I respect that.
Nope,
But
I
who,
didn't.
oh well, still, who do you think will win the Heisman? How about that? Who do you think will win the Heisman, regardless of who you think deserves it or whatnot? Who do you think will win it?
I think it's going to be Jayden Daniels because he is the running quarterback that gets all the stats and
Okay,
the highlight reels on ESPN.
all right.
I agree. I think Jada Daniels will win it because recent history is on his side. I mean, the fans pretty much, if you see online, it's almost as if you need to be a running quarterback in order to win the Heisman. Where Joe Burrow had a lot of records
Mhm.
and undefeated. There was a reason why he won the Heisman. Maybe if Bo Nix was undefeated, possibly, but it's just that's kind of what recent history is to suggest. Are you a running quarterback? You're going to win.
Yeah, outside of Joe Burrow, the only one that had a chance to win the Heisman was Mac Jones, and they gave it to Devontae Smith.
I mean,
Which was
So
which was the
there goes that
worst?
argument.
Devontae Smith, worst Heisman ever. I will never get over him winning it over Kyle Trask. Call me a homer all you want. Kyle Trask deserved the trophy, but you know what? That can be a topic for another time because I would get on
Devontae
a heater
Smith
about that.
had a bunch of highlight reel catches that showed up on ESPN. That's what it is. It's a TV show.
yeah. But speaking
Yeah,
of
fair enough.
highlights that are going to be on ESPN, we're bound to see several this weekend with conference championships coming up. We've talked about it before with how we see the end of the year, the final four rankings going to be going into the college football playoffs. But now we're going to elaborate more why we kind of had those teams there going based off of conference. So, and I'm going to talk about the Pac-12. I have Oregon in my final four because I do believe they are the better team and they will beat Washington this weekend. They are going to avenge their only loss this year. And I think and the spread is 9.5, which when I saw that, I'm like, this is absurd. It really is. This is an undefeated Washington team, and Washington, up until last week, had not allowed a single touchdown for I want to say 5 straight games in the fourth quarter. That's how strong their defense is late in games. If you could have a team that late in games shows up, it it gives them a lot better chances. And it was showing that. That's why they're undefeated. But this Oregon team, like I said, since that loss against Washington, they've had their eyes set on this national championship game. And it all starts with 1 week at a time. And that's the mentality they've had. They haven't had the mentality of, let's get Bo Nix as Heisman. Because if that was the case, he'd play every single minute of every single game. But it's not. It's all about let's keep our players healthy and let's get a championship. And ever since I've seen that and them taking a 1 week at a time approach, they've just gotten better and better and better. And that is scary leading into this championship game. And I just feel that Oregon is going to pull out this win, and I think they're going to actually pull it out pretty easily. And I mean, I hope I'm right. I hope I'm not jinxing anything because I am an Oregon fan. But that all aside, bias aside, looking at the teams, just looking at the two teams, I feel Oregon is the better team. Yes, Washington has the better receivers, but do they? Yes, stats may show that, but I think come game day, Oregon receivers know how to show up, and they did that against Oregon State, and I think they're going to do that against Washington as well. So all eyes are going to be on Troy Franklin as a potential first-round draft pick as a receiver, but there's a lot of others that come after him, and Bo Nix knows how to sling the ball, and he'll throw it to 7 different receivers, and that's what I love about what Bo Nix's ability is to be able to find those receivers and running backs outside coming from the backfield. So I just, on paper, guys, I just have Oregon winning this game, and I have them going into the Final Four college football playoff rankings because a Pac-12 championship last year, the Pac-12, essentially, I really think it's going to drive them there, and I really like their chances, and I like their chances against the likes of any of the other teams that I feel that are going to be there in the end. That's just how good I see this Oregon team being this year. So that's how I'm going to feel about the Pac-12. But the ACC, though, this is where things also get interesting. And David, I mean, Florida State, Louisville, I mean, who's going to pull this out?
Well, obviously, we know without Jordan Travis, this is going to be an interesting game, but I just, in good conscience, can't take Louisville over FSU. I think even though Jordan Travis is quite clearly the heart and soul of that FSU team, I think FSU overall has a better roster than Louisville. I mean, kudos to the Cardinals and kudos to Jeff Brom for the year he's done, his first year at his alma mater. I believe that Louisville is his alma mater. But guys, FSU is on a mission. Like, they are finally relevant for the first time since the Jimbo years. And if I remember correctly, um, other than last year, like I just mean like overall, like this new era that they're in, they haven't been relevant since about the mid to somewhat late, 2010s. They are right there. They are so close after years and years of disappointment. They're 12-0 that even without their leader, even without Jordan Travis, I just can't see them letting this opportunity slip away. And I think even though Jordan Travis isn't playing, I think they're still going to lean on him because of his leadership abilities. I don't think it's a secret that Jordan Travis is a phenomenal leader, right? Even when he's not playing, he can still influence his team just by simply being a captain on the sidelines, right? So I don't want it to happen. And believe it or not, I was tempted to pick Louisville, but I just can't do it. I got to go with FSU, but I do think it's going to be a close game. And if I had to pick a score prediction, give me FSU 28, Louisville 23. But Ed,
That's fair.
I understand you want to cover the big bad SEC, the best conference in the whole damn country. I don't know why I went country there, but yeah, what do you think?
What is it telling you just walked out of the Dukes of Hazard? Okay.
I've never seen that movie, believe it or not.
Oh, I used to watch the TV
He's talking
show.
about the show with
Oh,
John
Oh,
Schneider.
well, that's how much I know, right? That's how much I know.
yep. Yeah, right. Second, one thing on Matt's game that I wanted to point out, Michael Penix in the first month of the season had a completion percentage in the 80s. When we got to October,
Yeah.
it went down to the high 60s. Now he's sitting at about 57%, for November. So he's gotten steadily worse.
As it gets
And
cold.
if we remember, Oregon all but lost that game more than Washington won that game, just from the overaggressiveness of Dan Lanning. I just wanted to put that one out there.
Yeah.
So I'm with you, Matthew. Oregon's going to win that game. Now, with the SEC championship, you're talking about two teams, one on a 29-game win streak, unbeaten in conference play, obviously. You're talking one that didn't find themselves until week 4 of the season, but they were unbeaten in conference play in what historically, over the past 10 years, has been the toughest conference in the country. Some would say the Pac 12 is on par with them this year. That's another conversation for another day. But when we're looking at these two teams, what's their strength? They are mirror images of each other. They both know how to win. They both win at the point of attack. They win in the offensive and defensive line, and they get skilled players that can do the dirty work. You know, with Carson Beck being his first full year, he has a grasp of the offense. You know, being able to sit behind Stetson Bennett last year, you know, and uh, he has really come into his own as both teams have progressed. Because what I'm looking at isn't the full season stats. I'm looking at what they've done the past month, because this is the time where you're supposed to play your best ball. And that's what both of these teams are doing right now. So when you're looking at Carson Beck, he's throwing for 312 yards a game versus Jalen Monroe's 247 yards a game. Now, Jalen Monroe is going to be your running quarterback, that he is going to be their rushing offense by himself, basically, you know, being spelled by uh, Jace McClellan, whereas Dejon is the running game for Georgia. So Carson Beck, you know, he's going to have more yardage there. But if you look at it, Georgia has more yards rushing per game over the past 4 too. Everything's just a little bit better at Georgia than what it is at Alabama right now. Defensively, they're giving up fewer yards. And scoring defense, it's almost a touchdown difference that that Georgia is giving up less than what Alabama is giving up at this point over the last 4 weeks. So when you put all those things together, they're just a little bit better at everything right now. And I'm not discounting the witch that is Nick Saban. But Kirby Smart came from that mold. So he knows everything that Nick Saban's doing and what he's thinking. They know each other like they're peas in a pod, you know, to coin a Southern phrase. But, you know, when you're talking about what each team has progressed into, Georgia had a head start. Alabama didn't know really who they were until week 4, when they truly handed over the offense to Jalen Monroe. You know, yes, Texas going into Alabama was the biggest win of the season, in my opinion, but Alabama still hadn't figured themselves out yet. So that was an advantage Texas all day long. But when we're talking about this game here, I'm really seeing something to the effect of 27-20, you know, as a final Georgia, you know, going scratch and getting into the playoff unscathed. Matthew, what do you think on that?
Well, you know, I heard this stat actually going into last week, into rivalry week, that it just blew my mind. Is right now in college football, there are only 2 teams that are top 10 scoring offense as well as top 10 scoring defense, and that's Georgia and that's Oregon. So if that doesn't tell you how balanced they are, but how much things are clicking, I don't know what will tell you that. That's just how much Georgia is really clicking as a team right now. And they are the number 1 team, and they are number 1 team for a reason. They've won 29 straight. They aren't getting as much talk as they did once before the last previous 2 years because of all those dogs they had on defense. But I'll tell you what, guys, this team is for real. This Georgia team is pretty much just as good as the other 2 Georgia teams that have won back-to-back championships. So I just see Georgia winning this game. Yes, Nick Saban will always be a witch, and he'll always have the refs' ears to whisper in. But I just really feel that this Georgia team is is just is just better and by a
Yeah,
lot.
Yeah, and I just want to comment real quick on both the Pac-12 and the SEC championship, real quick. First of all, when it comes to Washington versus Oregon, Matthew, I actually had no idea about that fourth quarter defense stat from Washington, so that's very impressive. But even with that being said, even though Washington is undefeated, I just can't take them against Oregon because if you look at Washington's season, their first four games they beat teams by 20 plus. But other than that, the rest of their games have been very, very close. Now they have played a very tough schedule. They deserve all the credit for that. Okay, right? But the fact remains that the majority of their wins have been very, very close. I mean, they beat Washington State by a field goal for crying out loud, and this is Washington State. We're talking about, and Oregon State, as we've been talking about, has just been on a roll. Now, when it comes to Georgia versus Alabama, I don't know if you guys saw, but Peter Burns from ESPN asked a question about who has the edge in these certain positions. And so I tweeted and I said, head coach UGA, quarterback UGA, and I'll explain myself afterwards. Skill positions UGA, overall offense UGA, defense UGA, special teams UGA, X factors Dylan Bell for UGA, and Amari Nyblack for Bama. My apologies if I mispronounced that player's last name. And then I said UGA is quite clearly the better team. It would not shock anyone if they won. Yet I still think Bama is going to pull off the upset. Now, head coach and quarterback was the hardest for me to decide, but the reason why I gave it to UGA in both cases, Nick Saban is clearly the greatest college coach of all time, the greatest college football coach of all time. Excuse me. No one's going to argue that. But when we're talking about right now, you look at what Kirby has done. Guiding a team to a third straight 12-0 season with a new quarterback is insane. And yes, having Brock Bowers certainly helps, but it takes great coaching to be able to continue to motivate your players to continue to strive, for that standard, right? And the reason why I give UJ the edge for quarterback, and that one was really tough for me to decide because, of course, we know about Jalen Milroe's running ability, but Carson Beck to me has been the more consistent quarterback from beginning to end, more consistent than Jalen Milroe has, and so that's why I give UJ the edge for quarterback there. So I think we're all in agreement that UGA is clearly better than Alabama, but just I don't know, man. There's something about Saban and these revenge matchups. Like I am telling you, he thinks about that 33-18 national championship score every single day, and he will keep thinking about it until he beats Georgia on Saturday. But that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, and to go back to the Florida State game, I think if Florida State has any chance, it's all going to be on Trey Benson, their running back. And
I agree.
I like Benson. I think he is actually a phenomenal running back that may not be getting the credit he deserves, but I think they really need to work him, and he would totally be on board for that, to just continue to feed him the ball, because he does make plays. If you watch his game tape, his highlights, he knows how to make plays. It's just that when you had a quarterback like Jordan Travis and receivers like Keon Coleman out there and Johnny Wilson, they tend to get more of the media attention. But Benson himself is a great running back, and that if they have any chance of beating this Louisville team, it's going to actually start with him and it's going to end with him. So that's just my opinion on that game. And just one more stat I wanted to throw out on the Oregon side of things is Bo Nix is up there at the top for leading the nation in passing yards, total offense. He's only got 2 interceptions. So a guy that, and this is completion percentage aside, guy who's leading the nation in offense only has 2 interceptions. That should also show you more to his character and how he plays football. He plays things smart, but he could be efficient at the same time. So I wanted to point that out. 2 interceptions at the end of the year and leading the nation in offense is phenomenal. I'm just telling you that right there. That does not happen often. So, hats off to him and the Oregon offense. Will Stein, first year offensive coordinator there, is doing actually an incredible job there. I love seeing him there. But Oregon, we have a jinx where our coordinators like to leave after a year or so. So he'll probably be gone, head coaching job somewhere. It just always happens that way. But I'm just glad that we've had Will Stein there. I think he's done a great job, and he's helped grow Bo Nix as well. But Ed, do you have anything more that you want to add for conference championships?
Uh, the only thing I'll add is Brock Bowers is him. That's if you're talking, a team that has just a slight edge everywhere on the field, they have a massive edge at tight end. So when you're talking about Brock Bowers being the best player in college football that cannot qualify to be in the Heisman race because he doesn't play quarterback or running back, uh, that's the guy. You're going to see Georgia attack Alabama on the edges because Auburn exposed it. You're going to see those things that have been exposed by Alabama through the year all get that scab picked a little bit more, when they play Georgia because they know how to do it, and they will do it often and continuously until it's stopped, and it's not going to stop until the clock ends.
No, that's just how good he is. We watch in the NFL every week with Travis Kelce. Mahomes is throwing him the ball. He's throwing it to him in the middle of the field. He's throwing it to him on the outside of the field. But you can't do anything about it. Why? Because he's just that good. And that's the same thing with Brock Bowers. And that's what's going to happen this Saturday. It doesn't matter if you have double coverage on him. Guess who's still going to get the ball? Brock Bowers. And even if he doesn't, it opens up the field for many others. And that Georgia offense has many others. So that's a great point that you bring up there with Brock Bowers. If you haven't heard of him, you should know him by now.
Yeah, I think Brock Bowers is one of the best tight ends that we've ever seen in like the last 10 years or so. Like both, it's really crazy how we had Pitts, from Florida, and then we have Bauer. So like two of the best tight ends we've ever seen, is insane. I won't go into who I think is better, but I think you can get an idea. That's all I'm going to say about that. I'll leave that up for interpretation.
It's that time of year where going into December, you've got the Christmas lights out, decorations. Where you're getting ready to celebrate Christ's birthday. There's Hanukkah. There's so many things that happen here in December. But one thing that doesn't get talked about a lot that should is winter meetings in baseball. And last year, if you don't remember last year, I do. I'm a Giants fan, but last year was such a hectic winter meetings in baseball that it's kind of just brought it to headlines now. I mean, last year we saw Aaron Judge supposedly go to the Giants, and then that changed within 30 minutes. Don't get me started on that. My blood was boiling. Arson Judge, you even misspelled the dude's name. I mean, how do you have a job? I mean,
Who was that? It was
that's
that
John
Heyman
Heyman.
guy.
John
Oh,
Heyman.
dude,
Yeah,
John Heyman is such a clown.
yeah,
Such a
yes,
freaking
he
clown.
is. So, but and then you had Carlos Correa going to the Giants. I mean, and then that changed. So I'm not trying to just circle around here on the Giants, but those were two of the biggest names on the free agent market. And Aaron Judge, ended up re-signing with the Yankees, where Carlos Correa with the Twins. I mean, so it's crazy. But this time around, all you're hearing about is Shohei Ohtani. Ohtani this, Ohtani that, but there are other deals that are happening right now, and there are some low market teams, big market teams. They're already making deals right now, and I'm going to talk about one. And this one actually was a phenomenal move by the Cincinnati Reds, where they picked up Nick Martinez, who was a pitcher out of the Padres. He started out actually with the Rangers, but Nick Martinez is going to be such a big help for this Reds team. If you don't know, this Reds team is actually very exciting. They shocked a lot of teams this last year, in baseball, a lot like Baltimore Orioles did. With the Reds started out hot, and then they brought in Ellie De La Cruz, and oh my gosh, Sports Center every single day was Ellie De La Cruz this, De La Cruz that, and rightfully so. I haven't seen such an exciting talent like that, honestly, in a bit, because it just was one of those that he was different and in a good way. This guy is a baller and he's going to be fun to watch. But this Reds team, though, they knew they lacked in certain areas, and that is pitching. Nick Martinez brings a lot to the table. He started 9 games last year, but he also came out of the bullpen too, majority of the time. That is an amazing asset for any team. If you could count on a guy to start as well as come out of the pen, that is a double-sided sword. That is two birds with one stone, and Nick Martinez is that guy. And he pitches a sub-low 3 ERA. So that's phenomenal for this Reds team. They needed that among the likes of Hunter Green, Alexis Diaz, their closer, who is Edwin Diaz's brother. They just have a great team, and they're just going to get better. But a lot of people aren't going to realize that because they're the Reds. They're a low market team, a lot like the Tampa Bay Rays. But look at the Tampa Bay Rays. They have actually done a lot of great things the last couple years. But I don't want to get David started. He will get triggered on this. But but Nick Martinez does sign a 2-year, $26 million deal with an opt-out after one. I hate these contracts. I really do, because it's almost like a rental, because a lot of times these guys do opt out, especially if they have a great year and they go get more money elsewhere. But it is one of those deals that it was probably what the Reds were able to give to get him. So 2-year, $26 million deal for him. But coming from a small market team, I'm going to go to a big market team where David's going to talk to us about who the Mets just signed.
So the Mets have signed starting pitcher Luis Severino for 1 year and 13 $13 million. Now, Severino was kind of an interesting case here because he had some really good years earlier in his career, guys, but he hasn't really been able to find that same touch. And then last year, he really, really struggled with a 6.65 ERA. So it's pretty obvious that the 1 year deal is a prove it deal, right? Because you're not going to sign someone for more than a year after they just, had a season with a terrible ERA. But clearly, the Mets know what he's capable of, which is why they're giving him this deal. Now, I am curious to see what other moves the Mets are going to make, because they did let go of Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander, and you know as far as pitching goes, Mets pitching wasn't horrible, but it certainly wasn't great. Like it was below average at best, I would say. And the Mets still have a lot of money, right? So I am curious to see where they're going to shop around and who they're going to get in the market. I mean, will Severino be able to find his touch again? Was last year a fluke? It's possible. And the dude is 29 years old, which is it's not young, but it's not old either. So but we'll see what happens. Ed, what do you think? And who do you got?
I think that it's a move that shows that the Mets still do not care. They are going to sign pitching in the offseason. They that is the foundation of what they want to do. But will it work? Will it not? It's the Mets. Well, it's probably not going to work. That's just history. You know, I mean, we all remember last year when they signed Verlander and Scherzer, and it was like, oh, this is the greatest pitching staff, best 1-2 punch since Randy Johnson and Kurt Schilling, going to the Diamondbacks. Well, that went in the toilet real fast. And you turn around and Verlander's back with the Astros, and Scherzer is, you know, pitching on a team that wins the World Series. So, you know, the Mets will not give up the fight, and you gotta love that about them. They're always going to do something that you're like, they're going to go all in, they're going to do it, and no,
One of these
it's
days, these moves will pay off. but that day is not
Yeah,
today.
one of these days, they got the polar bear, and he's a fun show.
Mhm.
He's a really good player, uh, but as an overall organization, uh, they just don't have the history. They don't know how to do it consistently, but they're trying, and you can't fault them for trying. And this is a move that helps them move in that direction, so to speak. And another player that a lot of teams are looking to get to move in that direction is somebody that is bringing in somebody from the Nippon Pro League. If you're not familiar with that, that's the Japanese league that you had Ichiro come from, and if I'm not mistaken, Otani came from too.
Yep.
These guys know how to play, so I am very curious to see where that leads, because this is a guy that in that league over 7 seasons was 70-29 with a 1.82 ERA. That is phenomenal. He tied Ichiro for a third straight MVP in that league. And if you're looking at just last year before he's making the jump, remember he's only 25. He's played 7 seasons. So that's a lot of baseball. Uh, and he has definitely ramped himself up to come to the major leagues and prove himself. Last year he was 16-6 with a 1.21 ERA with 169 strikeouts and 28 walks. That is a phenomenal stat line for any pitcher at any league. I don't care where you're coming from. So, that is a player that is second priority, because of course Otani's going to be first priority. Second priority for the teams that can sign him. And right now, he can negotiate and sign as a free agent through January 4th. So we've got a whole nother month of the sweepstakes to get this guy and make that next step. Some of the teams that have been talking about getting him is the Yankees, because of course it's the Yankees. They're willing to spend whatever it takes to win, whether it works or not. Mets, they have no problem spending big money on pitchers in the offseason. Whether it does anything for the roster, here's an idea. The Mets sign him and just ship him to Texas Rangers. How's that? It's not like we haven't seen that before. The Red Sox are trying to, make a splash to make themselves competitive again. The Dodgers and the Giants have the same pitch, for this guy that I think is relevant, and that is the fact that West Coast teams I tend to have a easier culture for Japanese players to acclimate themselves into, which makes them more comfortable in going to those teams, and they can spend just as much money as the Yankees, Mets, Red Sox, whoever you want. So, that's certainly a idea for those teams to get him. But let me ask y'all this question: this guy being that good of a pitcher, winning all those MVPs in the league that he was in, would Otani actually wait to see where he signs before he makes the move himself?
Hmm. Good question. My first question to that would be, and it might not matter, but does Otani personally know him? Like, are they friends?
I'm sure.
Well, all players know
Well,
all
yeah,
players
but
know each
like
other at this point.
that fair, but like like are they gonna have a beer together? I guess is what I'm like what I'm asking.
I'm pretty sure.
I would
Okay.
imagine at some point, because when a player is coming in that doesn't know the culture or know
Hmm.
the area, there's got to be somebody that they can talk to that has been through it.
Hmm.
Almost a mentoring situation, getting them acclimated to being here versus where they're comfortable.
Yeah. What do you think, Matthew?
I waking up yesterday morning, I saw the report that Otani plans to make a decision in the next 2 weeks. Um, and Otani, as if we know, and a lot of others may not, is he did suffer an injury. He will not be pitching at all this next year. He'll only be hitting. So this is a little different than what we're used to seeing, because we're used to seeing such a dual threat with him. And it's almost like it kind of rules out the Giants, because the Giants isn't a really decent, it's not a good hitter ballpark, especially for a left-hander like himself. It is a pitcher-friendly park, which could play as a good benefactor as well, but he's not pitching this next year. It sounds like Ohtani, he's eager to find out still that his worth is really high and what teams are wanting to get him, because he's going to get signed for a lot more than Yamamoto is. That's just how it works. You know how many Yamamotos, and I'm not saying this as his last name, but you know how many Yamamotos has came from Japan to the U.S. to play in the majors. And you've never heard of them. Well, that's because there's a lot. You've only heard of the successful few, such as the Ichiros, the Otanis, because they still have to prove themselves. There's been a lot that have came from Japan that are the next big thing. And they just can't hack it. So Yamamoto, he is going to get a good amount of money, but he's not going to get Ohtani amount of money. So I don't think Ohtani is going to hold out to hear what he gets or where he goes. I think that Ohtani is going to set the market. He's going to get his bag, and here's our next question. Where's he going to go? Well, I think he's going to the Dodgers. He's already in LA. He already knows that market, but he wants to go to a team that could at least go to the playoffs. Well, the Dodgers are good for that. They choke, but they are good for at least going to the playoffs. Whereas the Angels, they're wasting two of the best talents we've seen almost ever with Mike Trout and Ohtani. So Ohtani is going to probably go to the Dodgers. The MLB, there's no salary cap. So teams will throw out money left and right. They'll just have to pay the luxury tax. We saw that with San Diego this last year. But he will most likely go to the Dodgers. That's my opinion. That's where I feel like he's going to go. I would love him to go to the Giants, but I just don't see it happening.
Have you seen any of the reports where Otani's been flirting with the Mariners?
It would not surprise me. Seattle is a big market for Japan. Same with San Francisco. But since Ichiro went to Seattle, it grew even more. And Seattle, man, if they were to get Ohtani, that's scary.
Mhm.
Really scary.
That is a scary division if you
Hmm.
have Ohtani with the Mariners, not the
And they're
Angels,
all
but with the
and the
Mariners.
Mariners are already an exciting young team that they've been so close the past few years.
Now they got Julio. But I have not
Mm-hmm.
seen the report, though, Ed, but it would not surprise me.
Yeah, I thought I saw it a couple of weeks ago that they were talking about that. And another name, like you were saying, Matthew, these players that were supposed to be the next big thing, Daisuke Matsuzaka.
Red
You
Sox.
know, he was heralded as having this pitch that nobody has ever seen before. And he wound up being a good reliever, but not the starting pitcher that he was in the Japanese league. So, yes, there are success stories, there are not so successful stories. And then there's the guys that hang around for a long time, uh, almost forgetting about the hype that they came into the league with. Kind of like, Y2K. There was a big hype around it, but it just kind of fizzled after time.
Hmm.
Like they do. But David, where do you think Otani's going to go? Who do you think signs him?
So my pick is actually going to be the Texas Rangers. Now, it is true that the Dodgers have the best odds, and the Rangers have not the second best odds. I believe that's the Cubs. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but the Rangers have the third best odds. But here's something to keep in mind: the Rangers have made a pretty significant jump in the odds. They have jumped from sixth to third, right? So that should tell you something right there. We know it's obvious. We know that Shohei Ohtani wants to win. And what better place to go to than the team that just won the World Series? And Matthew, you said it yourself. The Dodgers do make the playoffs, but they're known for choking. And other than that one title in the COVID 2020 year against my Tampa Bay Rays, Dave Roberts really hasn't proven himself much in the postseason. In fact, I can't. One of my favorite things to do, like low key, after every Dodgers postseason loss is just reading all the comments from Dodgers fans saying, "Fire Dave Roberts, fire Dave Roberts." I think they're just about sick and tired of him as their manager. But yeah,
I agree.
yeah, you talk about, but yeah, you talk about the Rangers here. They are the defending national World Series champions, and also keep in mind, and Matthew, you know this better than Ed and I. Bruce Bochy is a wizard in the postseason. He may not always lead you to great regular season success, but when a Bruce Bochy led team is in the postseason, you better not bet against them unless you just want to be dumb as hell, right? And I think you make an interesting point, Matthew, about how he is in the LA market and he knows the area. But I could also argue that maybe he's looking for a change of scenery. People do that. I know, like in my case, and I know this isn't really a comparison, but growing up, being born and raised in Tampa, one of the reasons why I wanted to go to Florida was because of a change of scenery. I didn't want to stay in Tampa during my college years. I wanted to kind of go out and on my own. I know that's not exactly the same here, but I am saying that maybe Shohei Ohtani would want a change of scenery. And plus, at the end of the day, would you rather live in Texas or California?
No brainer.
Exactly.
Ed, I mean, you got anything to add on top of that?
I think that pretty well covers it. We all know that the big three teams in the Northeast, they're going to throw as much money as they can, but can they really fit what Otani's looking for? Is Otani really? Otani doesn't strike me as a guy that is just looking for the biggest payday as a hired mercenary. Because if
Mhm.
that were the case, he'd be staying in the Angels organization. He is looking to move so he can win, and certainly not going to win with the Mets, due to history. Red Sox, they are a few players away. Yankees, that may be the closest. And can you imagine Aaron Judge and Otani being in the same outfield with that short porch? That's insane.
What about
But I could also say the same thing for Texas with Garcia out there, uh, and Otani, playing center field with him and right. So that is, there are teams that could be really interesting for him to go to. Does he want to be that last piece, or does he want to be an extra piece? That may be something that's going on in his head as well, because that's really what we're talking about here. Is, are we looking at a team that just needs him, or are we looking at a team that is going to dominate because they got him over anybody else?
what about? And I'm just throwing this out here, but do you guys think that the Phillies have a shot at landing Otani? No shot.
No, I mean
Nah,
they
nah.
missed out on a big splash already, but I think that that they won't get him. But I've seen crazy things happen. But I think even if the Dodgers get him, the Dodgers will still collapse in the playoffs more than the Berlin Wall. I mean, and I enjoy saying that because I'm a Giants fan and my mom's a Dodger fan. So, hi mom. But yeah, Dodgers collapse. She knows it. Clayton Kershaw, Roberts, they all they do is they choke, and she knows it best. We know it best. And I like Roberts as a man. I do like Dave Roberts. I just don't think that he's the guy there anymore. I There's a lot of lost confidence there.
And he overmanages every situation.
Yes, he
You
doesn't.
know, you
Absolutely.
got to let players play.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Sometimes though, that is also his issue. You know how much faith he would show in Kershaw and Kenley Jansen when Jansen was there, and they would blow it. I mean, there was a lot, but so it's like there wasn't a middle for him. It was either one or the other sometimes, and I just feel like he just doesn't have the feel for it.
Hmm.
As a manager, rightfully and I just feel like sometimes he didn't, and the reason he has success is because of the players he has there.
Yeah,
Yep.
and I also feel like one of Dodgers Rogers, Rob. I can't talk tonight. One of Robert's biggest flaws in the postseason is how he handles his pitchers. In fact, I remember a few years ago. Was it who who's that one Asian pitcher the Dodgers have? I don't know if he's with them anymore.
They
You
had
forget?
Chen?
Yu Darvish,
No, not you, Darvish.
Maeda, Kenta Maeda. Was it Maeda?
It'll come back to me, but
Yeah.
I don't remember his name. But if I recall correctly, I think there was a moment when the guy was just balling out on the pitching mound, and Roberts took him out too early, and I think the Dodgers lost because of that. If I remember correctly.
You probably do. Probably sounds exactly what happened.
Yeah.
So
It sounds like him.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm interested to see though, and I'm also interested to see what you fans have to say and where you think Otani's going to go, Yamamoto's going to go, because there's going to be some suitors out there. There is a lot that are ready to open their checkbooks, have a blank check there, and just sign. That's what the MLB is about now, and I'm expected to see it, and I expect to see it also though in the next week. So keep your eyes and ears out, but I'd love to hear where you guys think Otani is going to go and Yamamoto, because it's expected to make a big splash, especially this winter meetings. But it's about all we have today, though, folks. If you could please hit that like, subscribe button, we would really appreciate that, and just continue to support us. We thrive off that, and we look forward to doing each and every episode just for you guys. So, but until next time, guys, we are rounding third, and we are headed for home.